Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Pure Digital Passion podcast with Moses Kemibara. And today morning, I have an interesting guest, a friend of mine who I've known for a good number of years, somebody who's a captain of marketing and the industry at large in the telecommunications and technology space. Karibu Sana, I'm joined here today by my friend Eric Achola from Telkom Kenya, and we're here to discuss a whole bunch of things regarding new initiatives and different projects that are currently being launched at Telkom Kenya to acquire and retain customers. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Eric.
Thanks, Moses. I'm humbled by the way you introduced me, but I simply like to reduce myself to what I call I'm just a marketer. So many years just
come on, don't even say that. You can't just say just a marketer.
It's just a marketing because in our field every day is a learning experience.
Yeah.
So you're never really a guru, and as you know, it's evolutionary. A lot of things are happening in the marketplace. And so some you know, and some you learn. So when you reduce yourself to what I call or make it as simple as just say I'm a marketer, then you open yourselves up to a lot of learning and a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. I think the constant learner is the kind of posture
Absolutely
we need to always adopt and stuff.
Absolutely.
But Eric, listen, before we jump into what Telkom is doing and the amazing new initiatives that, surprisingly today I came for one thing, I found two things, and then there's a third thing where I want to talk about all of them. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself professionally, personally. Okay. Who are you? Where do you come from? I know you've had an interesting background working at the breweries, working at other telcos. Tell us a little bit more about Eric.
So, very interesting. I have a family of 4 brothers.
Oh, wow. 4 boys, no girls?
No girls.
Wow.
Complete testosterone as we were growing up, and I'm a last born.
Really?
I am a last born.
Wow, okay.
And
grew up in Nairobi?
I grew up, I'm a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
I grew up, I was born in Nairobi. What I call my elementary or fundamental years grew up in the US.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And then because my father was a professor, he hobnobbed up across Africa, and so we grew up a lot of places in Africa. And
I'm sure you guys were given no mercy on the academics, given your dad was a professor.
No, that's an interesting discussion because my father is one of those guys who I can say is very academically gifted. And so two of my elder siblings. My elder brother, the one I follow, and myself, I think we are average. Okay? And when you're an average in amongst giants, that gets very complex.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lots of pressure.
There are lots of pressure.
So you guys were in the US at some point?
Yeah, in the US.
Around.
We did US, then we lived in Zambia.
Wow.
A little bit of Zimbabwe, and then we came into Kenya.
Back home.
Excellent. And settled.
And then at what point did you decide to pursue this wonderful career of marketing and this sort of thing? How did that all happen?
It's a very interesting one, but it's largely, it's about trying to be like your elder brother. So I have a brother who's a hardcore marketer. Today he's the MD at BAT.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was the first.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yes.
Because I know him.
Yes.
I think we're connected even on LinkedIn.
Yes,
I know him.
So Chris is my elder brother.
Uh-huh.
So when I was in high school, Chris was at University of Nairobi studying BCom marketing. And his first job was at Unilever, so I used to get fascinated about all the stories of we went to the market, we created a brand, and we did this and that. So I had some level of interest, but I wasn't very clear that I was something I was going to pursue.
Yes.
So when I went to university, I studied a very interesting degree. So I'm a teacher by profession.
No way. You
Yes.
did education?
I did education.
I think with my older bro, when he got called, he was called for education as well, but he wanted to be a civil engineer. But I know how that happened.
Yes, so I started off in education, then somewhere like in my second year, I'm like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And so I took up a lot of marketing elements in my degree. And as that went on, I picked up skill sets around marketing because I did a degree in economics and marketing.
Okay.
And so I focused a lot more on the business elements and less on the education, although I did do education. And when I finished my undergrad, I decided this is it, I'm not going to teach. Never stepped in a classroom in terms of a formal classroom to really teach, although I've had the benefit of teaching what I call a few introductory classes to MBA classes at Stratford.
Oh, okay, nice.
And so I get opportunity once in a while to come in as a guest lecturer, and I do quite enjoy that aspect of teaching. That's how I became a marketer. My brother inspired me, encouraged me, and still does the same up to today.
So through the years you were at, what was it, Diageo?
So, interesting. I started my career at a company called Stedman and Associates. which was then bought by what people know today as IPSOS.
The research side of marketing.
Yes. So I studied myself in the science of marketing.
Ah.
So you do the research, you understand customer behavior, understand customer norms. And then I was fortunate enough to get a job at Unilever.
Nice.
So
Went to the client side.
I worked on the client side.
Yeah.
And Unilever was, it's an amazing business, to be honest. Back in those days, we used to call it's the hunting ground or the PhD ground for learning.
So they teach you everything.
They never pick you a lot.
Bring you up.
But they teach you a lot.
Fantastic.
They expose you to fundamentals of brand management, and you get a lot of exposure. You get to interact with a lot of global brands and a lot of global marketers. So they really expose you, they treat you well, they teach you, they educate you. And then along that path, I got an opportunity to go work at, those days it was UDV. It was UDV and Kenya Breweries were totally two different entities.
Yes,
So I like to say I am the true Diageo.
Both sides.
True Diageo, because in those days, Diageo was a pure spirits portfolio. And they owned Guinness UDV. And then they merged with EABL.
Yes.
So we came from what I call being the true Diageo. And then we merged with the breweries guys. And so I came with the spirits portfolio. And so when people talk about, KC and all those things, those were my initial brands.
Yes.
Local priority brands is what I started with.
Yes.
So brands like Kenya Cane, Bond 7, and some of them, they don't exist today. There was Chelsea, vodka.
I think I remember that one,
Popo vodka. So,
oh no, don't tell me about Popo.
So that's why I started my career with the local priority brands, spirits brands, and then I grew into global priority brands, the likes of Smirnoff, Johnny Walker.
Okay.
And when we went to the brewery, there was a concerted effort to blend people from the spirits background into beer and vice versa.
Okay.
And so I got to move into beer brands. And so when I started working in the beer brands, Pilsner was my mainstay. So I did Pilsner Ice, and the Pilsner portfolio. I think I did a reasonably good job.
Okay.
Because then I got seconded to go work in Uganda. Yeah, for Uganda Breweries. And I went in as a marketing manager. And again, very interesting portfolio. Pilsner, there was...
the famous endemic Ugandan brand.
There you go. A few Ugandan local brands, and again, fusion of brands. And then that kind of came to an end when I wanted to come back. And this is the thing about, I always tell young people, when you sometimes get a job with a global entity and you go on secondment, you got to recognize the fact that secondment is a great thing. It builds you, it exposes you.
Yeah.
But you also got to be aware that sometimes when those secondment opportunities end,
there
is no opportunity to go back home.
And
so when I was now coming back, or when it was time for me about to come back, there was no opportunity to come back to Uganda Brewery. I mean to Kenya Breweries.
Wow.
There was no job.
Really?
Yes, there was no job. And so I pivoted off and I went to Coke.
But still beverages.
Still beverages. And so Coke was amazing. I mean, 7-8 years at Coke. I started off with what they call teen and adult portfolio. Very fancy name, but simply put, that's, Schweppes, Fanta and Sprite. And I was doing what they call a senior brand manager job in what they call the central marketing function. Now, central marketing, Coke is interesting because they have what they call central and franchise. So in central, you're more about the strategy.
Yeah.
So the job was what they used to call a division, was called ICABU. East and Central Africa Business Unit. 27 countries, you're driving strategy for this portfolio across these markets. You get to travel, you get to meet people, you get to see diversity, you get to interact with guys in the global team.
Yeah.
And so you build a lot of character and, you're building brands. Really exciting. So I did that for about 2.5 years. Then I got moved to what they call a franchise job. So the franchise job is really now where the rubber meets the road. It's
the bottlers and all that.
Now you're managing bottlers. You don't do... Coke is a very interesting business. It's a consulting business, to be honest. When you work for what we used to call KO, because that's what...
I remember seeing that even on emails.
Yeah, so KO is how it's traded on the stock exchange. That's where the name comes from, KO.
Okay.
But if you work there, we call it the TCC, the Coca-Cola company. Okay? So when you work for TCC, you're more strategic and less operational. The bottler is completely operational. And so they work with a thing called a CBA, which is really a franchise agreement. It's a way of working.
Yes.
The bottler produces, distributes, and sells. Coke provides the brands, markets, and provides the IP. And gives them, of course, the concentrate, the syrup, the secret sauce that produces the soda. But it helps if you've worked in what I call an end-to-end company, like the way I worked at the breweries and at Unilever. So you understand what it means to produce
Yeah.
and to market.
Yeah.
And so you take that skill set into a company like TCC, which is really, on the Coke side, more of a thought leadership process, not the doing, but it helps when you have a good appreciation of the doing. So when you're talking to them or you're trying to influence, because the job is more of an influencing job. You know, the bottler, to be honest with you, is a separate entity. They run their own P&L. They've got the right to tell you no. So you've got to influence them. You need to understand, I understand your position. I understand what it means to run production.
Issues
I
on
know,
the ground.
yes, I understand. When you talk their language,
Yeah.
then you win trust and you win empathy and you get into their business. Now, the good thing with Coke is, at least when I worked there, was I was looking after 27 countries, then they expanded, got to 39 countries.
Wow.
So I'm looking at the whole of West Africa. And then Angola. So
Lots of travel.
yeah, lots of travel. I mean, at those stages in your early days in your career,
It's
it's
exciting,
nice.
yeah.
But I can tell you, it reaches a certain stage, becomes now an irritant.
I remember back in the days, the time I used to travel so much,
Mhm.
I'd wake up in a bed
Yes.
and I don't know where I am.
Very true.
Very scary.
There's
There's that first few seconds you wake up and
don't know where
what's
you
going
are.
on, what's where am I, and then I imagine that happened to you as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a time, I think I was in Mauritius, I'd gone to lunch called Zero or Reunion, I can't remember quietly. You look at your watch, it's a different time, you watch your cell phone is a different time, and the watch on the clock is a different time.
It's completely
And you don't know where
alienating,
you are.
Yeah, yeah, wow.
So it takes time to look at the menu, then you look at the hotel, then you kind of connect the dots.
You come back,
connect the dots, you know where you
Yeah.
are. So I did that for a little bit, and then I had a fortunate opportunity to being what they call a problem solver in Coke. I would go to very difficult markets to unlock business problems. So my first stint in terms of really unlocking problems was sent to Mozambique. And those days in Mozambique, there was a very strong competitor, local competitor. My job was to kind of figure out what their plan is, how they take their things to market, and what could we do differently. So I went there to Mozambique and I disrupted, got some good results in the early days. Then I was taken to Angola.
Wow, this is now really peripheral Africa. This is
Yes,
frontier.
yes.
Frontier Africa, eh?
Yes, and Angola was, how do I describe it? One of the most exciting markets I've ever worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Completely different, I imagine, to more settled, more mature
Nothing
markets.
that I've ever, nothing African, to be honest with you.
Really?
They're African by virtue of the fact they're in Africa, but their behavior is Brazilian and Portuguese. So they behave like people from Portugal and Brazilians.
And they see themselves almost
They
as
see themselves
directly
like that,
connected,
like
yeah?
Absolutely.
Almost like some of these West African countries like Cote d'Ivoire and all, I imagine.
Even worse.
Even worse.
Assimilation is
Wow.
significant more because it is the language of business is Portuguese. So here I am, I'm an English speaking person. You land in the airport and the level of arrogance, because this is, imagine this is like early 2007, 2008, petrodollar economy as we define it. These guys have got oil wells, rigs, everything you can imagine from an oil point of view. They are booming, the economy is booming. They just come out of civil war. They have more money than you can imagine.
And everything is new.
Yeah, but what's the case scenario? There's no infrastructure. Not everything is new. There's no infrastructure.
So they're at ground zero. in
Yeah,
that
because
respect.
those days we'd pay a 3-star hotel, $650 a night.
What?
Bed, not bed and breakfast, bed.
And that's the best money can buy.
Yeah, and my
Wow.
average expenditure a day was $1,000.
What?
No luxury. That's breakfast, bed, breakfast, lunch, dinner. No luxury. $1,000 a day. Kid you not.
Wow.
Gone. But I tell you what, for the Coke company, one of our most profitable business. Why? Recommended retail price of soda was $1. When we were selling a 20 bob here in Kenya,
5 times.
I was selling 5x.
Wow.
Recommended retail price of beer and soda was the same.
And the cost of sales, obviously.
Cost of sales, I mean, there was a bit of infrastructure because we, as Coke works, with brewing partners.
Yeah.
As our partner was Sub-Miller.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what you happen when you have a brewing partner, you take the excess capacity. So when they're not brewing beer, they're producing soda.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's how Coke works. We worked with a lot of brewing partners, especially in Central Africa and parts of what I call West Africa. A lot of brewing partners. So you'll find a lot of these big brewers actually do produce Coke.
And that was for underutilized capacity.
Yeah, underutilized capacities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Never knew that. Wow.
So after that, came back to do a central job, and then I went to Nigeria. I went and learned with the Ogaland, and that was, again.
I remember my time in Nigeria now almost 10 years ago, where I used to spend, I think, 2 to 3 weeks a month in Nigeria.
Wow.
It was always very clear to me one thing. Amazing revenues.
Absolutely.
But not a place I would say that I would be very comfortable, let's say, moving my family. So I was happy to do the business, but culturally and everything, I think I preferred to be in Kenya.
You're spot on, but it's interesting that my wife and I have a very similar affinity for Nigeria.
So did you guys move family and everything?
No.
Uh-huh.
I went to Nigeria for a year. And ended up
living and working there?
Yes. And I ended up working for almost 2.5 years.
Wow.
The way I came back is my wife issued me an ultimatum. She said, if I'm not here on October 20th, 2013, I might as well stay in Nigeria forever.
But you know, you're right. I don't know what it is, but there's something addictive.
It's addictive. It's adrenaline because it's high-paced, high energy, a lot of cash, okay? Business is growing. Your career seems to be moving in the right direction. All the recipes are right, but the only challenge for me was there was no family. So I used to shuttle up and down every 3 weeks.
Up and down.
Every 3 weeks I was back home.
So we're doing about the same like you.
But the problem was also that the challenge for me for Nigeria was because I was doing Nigeria's global top 22 markets, Coca-Cola. So you work in Nigeria, but you also have to go for a lot of global meetings. So Nigeria was like just
that important.
Yes, it was a bed stop, if you could put it that. You're in Turkey, because Istanbul was our headquarters for Africa, Eurasia, Africa. There's other times you're in Atlanta, other times I'm in Nairobi. So even I thought about if you do move your family, you're moving them, but you're not there. Is that fair? Is that fair?
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So I made the sacrifice, and then again, I go back to what I told you earlier. The assignment ends and there's no job.
This seems to keep happening to you, huh?
Happens to a lot of people.
So you excel out there in the field.
But then you come back, because you're saying, look, I'm not going to go back and come back on a lateral. I'm looking for some growth.
Yeah. So it's about that upward trajectory. You've accomplished this, you come back at the same level.
Nah, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in Safaricom.
So that must be very interesting because I'm sure, were you headhunted or how did it go down?
No, actually I applied for the job. And I can tell you honestly, it's the only job I've ever applied for in a newspaper ad.
Wow.
Interviewed and gotten. 90% of the time I don't even apply. I'm usually a headhunter.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So Safaricom at that matter. Huh?
Yeah, so I applied. I went through the interview process. Very interesting interviewing process, and I got the job.
Huh? What is that role at Safaricom?
So they call it a head of brand role, but it's very, to be honest, it's very broad.
Wow.
It's very, very broad, and I am honest to say it was the first time in my entire career I didn't think I was going to make probation.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't know?
I didn't think I was going to make probation.
Why is that? Was it the workload? Was it the
Because
expectations?
you come from what they call fast-moving consumer goods to electric pace. I'd never seen any pace of this nature. Okay? In my maiden year at Safaricom, my ad agency came back and told me, we have a problem. And I said, what's the problem? And they say, this year, regardless of size, small, big, whatever, format, content, whatever, we've produced about 460 different pieces of content that have gone to customers in terms of what I call brand content, not content for digital.
It's across all media.
Yes. And so the sheer quantum of work, it can become overwhelming. If you're a little bit, because let me be honest with you, you work at a Unilever, you work at a Coke, you work at a P&G, you probably have 2 big campaigns in a year and a few tactical. Telcos is not like that. Telcos, the way about Telcos, the fortunate thing about Telcos, or the unfortunate thing is, you can be extremely strategic and tactical at the same time. What do I mean? If I'm going to launch a new packaged good, I have to think about packaging, I have to think about raw material, I have to think about supply chain. Here, I just call my guys and ask technical, can you make it?
Create this product.
Yeah. And tomorrow.
Wow. So the turnaround time.
It's in real time. Then guess what? If it fails, just as quickly as I've launched it.
So iterating, trying.
Just as quickly as you can kill it. You can't do that with consumer packaged goods.
There's the lead time of
course. Because you've also I've raw material 6
research.
months, I've syrups, I've did this, I research. Here, I just launch it. I don't have to research. I can do live tests in a real market environment every single day. It's Telco. Customer doesn't like it, I yank it.
So you come in this environment and things are just running.
High pace. The sheer pace of the organization. I've never seen anything like it. And then, people think it's dominant, clear number one. Yes, they're dominant. I will never lie to you about that fact. But do they work hard to be there? To be honest, they do.
It's not by random.
It's not random.
No.
It's orchestrated. So yeah, so that kind of came to an end after 2 years, and I find myself in entrepreneurship.
Oh, so you even had a stint in entrepreneurship?
Yes, I've done a stint in entrepreneurship, and
the plot thickens.
yes, the plot thickens, and it's tough.
Trust
you see,
me, I know. I've been there. I'm still there, so I know.
And the challenge I feel about entrepreneurship is the stories are always told to be positive. No one tells you about the real battle scars of you managing cash flow. You know, I tell you for free. I used to sit on a marketing budget of over 3 billion shillings when I worked at Safaricom.
Wow.
Now you're thrown into entrepreneurship. You have to grow your business on your own money, and you don't have it. You're digging into your reserves. You gotta figure out. You still have the same bills. You still want to maintain the same lifestyle.
And you're covering all these costs.
And you're covering your costs, plus your business. And it's rough. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting because I started off by getting into what every marketer usually does. I'm a consultant. And when you walk into a lot of doors and you're looking for opportunity, you get to realize consultants are not really liked. Because, especially when you say you're a marketing consultant, because their view of you is you've come from Safaricom, you worked at Coke, you worked at Unilever, all you know is how to do is spend money. And people don't think that there's a philosophy or a thought value process that you can really...
In a small organization.
Make them unlock. Because they say this guy only knows how to work with big numbers. Can't work without a budget, can't help me grow my business. And so now you have to prove yourself. That you know you can diagnose a problem and show him how to get out of it, even with no money.
I think if we take a step back, there's even a bigger issue that I saw as an entrepreneur coming from the corporates to doing my own thing, which was before you start, and maybe you hint to people you're going to start, everyone tells you, we're going to support you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you show up, and it's not as you think.
And let me tell you, that's the best thing. Because for me, what I learned in consulting is invaluable. A lot of people who you know say they will support you, and they give you time, but nothing converts. All they do is give you time. You go for the many meetings.
They're watching.
Yeah, nothing converts.
Wow.
It's usually the underdogs.
You're pitching, nothing's happening.
The guy who doesn't know you, the guy kind of has saying, okay, I kind of like the story. That's the guy who helps. But most of the people who know you don't convert.
I think that's it's almost like that saying about Jesus. You know, where he came from.
Yes.
People didn't believe he was the Messiah.
No,
but everywhere else they did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings me to a very interesting thing that I stumbled the other day on a podcast, actually by Vusi.
Yeah.
Yeah, he calls it the Fargan.
The Fargan.
Fargan principle, which is really a thing, I think it comes from Finland, where they go out of their way to support people in the community, even if the product is half-baked. So long as it comes from people within my community, they are the first to buy and to support you and to help you iterate and grow. It's about the principle of giving back from within. Even if it's a great, let's assume I was running a great show, or I'm a comedian, or I have a launch event. The people will know that my quality of the show, they could have gotten better from elsewhere. But because of this Fargan principle of supporting within our own and helping build within our own, they allow you to flourish within the community first. They build you first, and then, they help you grow outwards. In Kenya, I think worse so than in anywhere else that I've worked, there is no Fargan principle. To be honest with you,
dog eat dog.
Fargan exists a lot, specifically with Nigerians.
They prop each other up.
They'll say, this is our guy. We will support him. I saw a lot of that when I walked in. There's a lot of Ubuntu or brotherhood in West Africa.
Yeah.
Here, unfortunately, when I worked in Nigeria, I began to believe that, and I began to appreciate that we are more British than the Brits themselves. We're very stuck up.
Everything is at arm's length.
Yeah, exactly. We're very stuck up. And as an entrepreneur, if you're not prepared for it, it can shock you. That all your buddies who have a level of influence in some blue chip company or some company worth of their salt will struggle to get you through the door. They'll give you airtime to talk to them, but it will not, the proposal doesn't probably even leave their desk.
I think there are two things to that. One is, I think there's that fear of the screw up, meaning I gave my boy and he screwed up. And then the other one is, and I don't know how to put this simply, I think it comes back to this thing of Ubuntu or almost a reverse Ubuntu, which is we sometimes struggle to see our brother succeed.
Yeah.
we have sometimes, I don't know, I think in Kiswahili they call it fitina.
It exists.
But that's something I think I've noticed as well.
But I think the bigger way of the way I look at it is your former argument. Is this guy my boy? Do I know him like that? Will he come through for me? Or do I just know him from the barbecue, the braai, and a couple of
school
sticks?
trips, whatever.
Yeah, and that. But generally, if you think about it, do we really know our boys, quote unquote, at a corporate level, from a work sense?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Socially, it's great.
Yeah, socially it's great, but from a corporate and from a business standpoint, and that's why sometimes even you think about it. I know you're an entrepreneur. When you do business, your greatest business conquests, have they come from your boys or from people?
No, it's been very much a meritocracy.
There you go.
Reputation.
Yeah.
Complete unknowns.
Yeah.
In fact, 90% of our business possibly. Okay, we get referrals from those who have experienced us.
Correct.
As a client, and then they say talk to these jamas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, maybe only 10% are really purely network driven.
Correct.
So a lot of on the basis of performance, on the basis of I've worked with these guys, they're good. That is how you get your business referrals, but not necessarily from your closest networks.
So that tells us, I begs to ask the question: How well do we know each other beyond social?
Not well at all.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. Do we talk business with our pals? Do we talk principles? Do we talk about some of our conquests and our failures?
Don't.
And so maybe this is why when you go into entrepreneurship, this is why we find it rough, and this is why we get disappointed and depressed and feel we're not supported. But have we done enough, even in our own social graces, to say,
look at me, this is what I do.
I've done. Yeah, this is what I do.
You don't.
It's usually just the barbecue, has the wife and the children.
But we don't go deeper than
Yeah,
that.
we
unfortunately.
don't go deeper. So the relationship, from a professional point of view, I think is superficial,
Yeah.
but very deep, probably from a social context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens? We start the business. It's challenging.
So I go into consulting to be precise, M-Kopa.
You join M-Kopa now.
No, I'm a consultant.
With M-Kopa.
M-Kopa, and
presumably because of your Safaricom background.
interestingly, I helped. I remember when they first came to me, they said we want to use your brand, and I was managing the brand. I said, "Oh, cool, go ahead. I can see association, how you want to grow up." And it's not purely out of pure coincidence that there's a gentleman called Jesse Oenga. Jesse used to be. I worked with him very short stint in Diageo. He came from GSK, GlaxoSmithKline at the time. I worked together short time here. He worked in Kenya. Then he went to be the marketing director at Serengeti. Is it Serengeti Breweries? Yes. And so he was working in Tanzania, and we interacted a little bit. And so he was at the time he was I think chief marketing officer and some broader title, growth strategy for M-Kopa. And we bumped into each other and he says, "What are you doing?" And I told him, "I'm in consulting." He said, "I want you to come." And as you know, life is, as I always say, 6 degrees of separation. We start talking and he tells me how my father taught him in university.
Wow.
Yeah. And how my father was a very interesting lecturer and used a lot of big English words. And fundamentally, the thing he told me that what my father stood out in class was he created a lot of knowledge in class. He never repeated lecture notes. There was always a different spin and a lot of research behind and effort behind the class. And so they found him to be a standout lecturer. And so he's asking me, "I hope you can carry the same principles into this organization."
He's calling you out.
Yeah. And I'm like, "Cool, I mean, I know the drill."
Yeah.
And I tell him, so I start consulting. And he tells me, "You need to leave consulting and come and work here permanently."
At Serengeti now.
No, this is at M-Kopa.
Oh, okay. So he had been at
Yeah, so he had been there longer than me.
Okay, got you.
And I'm like, "No, it takes time to build consultancy and build my thing. I'm beginning into a rhythm and a rhyme and I like it." He tells me, "You need to come here permanently. These guys want you here. They've seen the value, you need to come." And I'm hesitant and I'm thinking the paycheck is nice. The business is not, the business hasn't stabilized. It's rough patches and there's financial pressure, I'm not lying. And so I make the leap and I go. And interesting, very interesting. In fact, it's one of the more interesting jobs I've ever held. The M-Kopa leadership, because I was part of the leadership team, but a vast majority of them are Ivy League trained. They've gone to Oxford, they've gone to Cambridge, they've gone to Yale, they've gone to Harvard.
There's a certain benchmark
Yeah,
there.
the pedigree. No fault. Cannot fault them. But what's interesting is the thought process. So they're very ideological, very well thought through, but they're not practical. So here we're having a couple of me and my colleagues. You come from experience and practicality.
Qua ground.
Yes, vitu kwa ground.
Uh-huh.
And here you have philosophical, ideological, but well thought through.
And these guys in the cloud.
Yes, and it's a massive tension and debates in the office.
Wow.
The theoretical versus the practical. And many times my boss would tell us boys, because we were a couple of boys, today go easy. And we'd go into the meeting with a view that we're just going to sell our story and this is the plan.
It's contrarian to what is being...
And then we get the theoretical guys.
Yeah.
And now it erupts.
Wow.
The room erupts. And it's tough debates.
But that can be healthy for business. That tension, that...
You see,
Yeah.
it's healthy in a mature business. This can be very destructive in a business that's trying to get into serious formation.
Essentially a startup at that
Yeah,
point.
because the CEO is stuck. Who does he listen to? Wow. I have all my... And the CEO, Jesse Moore at the time, he's an Ivy League guy as well.
Uh-huh.
Does he listen to his Ivy League guys who he went to school with in Stanford and the likes? Or does he listen to the guys who've got ground?
The market guys.
Yeah, the guys who've been in the market and been in the trenches and understand the principles of trading in Africa. Who do you listen to?
It's a conundrum.
Yes. And so what happens anyway, cut the long story short,
Yeah.
is we get into a debate of, does marketing work for this category?
What?
Yeah, does marketing work?
Hang on a second. Back
The
up
business, remember it's a startup.
here. Does marketing even work for this concept? That's what they're saying.
There's the challenge. It's a
Wow.
fundamental challenge. And because this business was in, 10x growth type, year on year. Then the year I joined,
Yeah.
the marketing starts plateauing. Why? The Kenyan government styles up. They're doing all this electrification, putting people on the grid. There's a time now you'd go in a mud hut, you'd find a meter.
So the market environment is changing.
So the environment is changing. And so the sales are not growing 10x anymore. And then they start challenging you, do I need to build a brand? So today I can tell you not philosophically, I know for a fact. My view about the solar category, specifically in Kenya, it's commoditized. Okay? There's no brand building. In essence, I think these companies have become trading companies.
They do the arbitrage between what they source the goods for and what they sell them for.
That is it. No one is interested in about a brand.
It's purely arbitrage business.
Yes, social enterprise, yes, because you're eradicating people from the dark and you're liberating them. You're moving them away from kerosene and paraffin lamps. So there is some social impact on that to that level. But do they really care about brands? I don't think so. Because if there is, just tell me one of them that has taken what I call principles of marketing, of building a brand.
And they're dominant as a brand.
None of them.
Wow.
And so that's why I left. And I went to their competitor.
As a marketer, there's no real role to play.
No, I went to a competitor who was Delight. Did the same thing for about a year. And they kind of end up having not enough marketing dollars to do what I call proper brand building. I don't think they were ready for it, to be honest, although they said it.
Yeah.
I left there many years ago. I feel the person who I took over from here at Telkom, Levy, we kind of traded jobs.
Okay.
He went to Delight, I came here. He didn't stay for too long, about a year in, just not much longer than myself. And again, it's the same issues. They're not ready for real principles of marketing. And then I went back into consulting. And I picked up a big project.
Wow.
Working with, what do you call them?
A nice big whale.
Yeah, it was a tiny whale. And it was Prince Harry's project called Men's Star Coalition. Erading HIV for men in Africa.
And it's more social impact.
It's let me put it this way, you're working in an NGO environment. They want to build a brand. They want to be radically different. Okay?
So they can cut through the noise.
Yeah. And I remember, and for some of you listeners, forgive my French. This is the interview. Eric, our job in Africa is to increase young males fuckability.
What?
Yeah. And so I sit up at the desk
And you're wondering what's going on.
and I
here.
ask the gentleman is called Muhammad. I tell him to repeat it. Because I think I didn't get him clearly.
My native, what's going on here?
Yeah. He said, yes, we want to increase fuckability. So let me unpack that so I don't leave you guys, hanging. Eh? So the thing is, we have such a high HIV prevalence in young adult males in Africa. Why? Because you think about it, ages of 18 to 21, actually at 24, it's about sexual conquests. Okay?
Yeah, it's all about, as
Yeah,
they say,
it's
Ndume.
Yeah, testosterone flying through the roof and proving your manhood, and it's about body count and all these kind of issues. Huh? And we're saying, but these guys don't know the HIV status.
Ultimately.
Yeah, and we're saying, think about it. If you want to increase your fuckability, yeah, and I use the term loosely, you have to know your status. Because no woman or no young girl or no prospect or suitor would give you any sexual opportunity if she knew you had HIV
Status,
status.
exactly.
So you're saying if you want to improve your sexual conquest or you want to improve your eligibility or desirability,
Yeah.
you have to know your status. And those people knowing, those who in and around you, they know your status, then you become attractable and desirable. So this is the essence of what we were trying to do. Okay?
And turn that into a positive trait.
Absolutely. And so we launched a campaign called Chukwa Selfie.
So this is the Chukwa selfie?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
So you were in that?
I was the man behind it.
And it's very much male oriented, huh?
Very male oriented.
So this is fast forward into that, and then we'll.
So-
yeah.
I do that, and then Telkom are going through the merger with Airtel, and my former colleague who I worked with at Coke, a gentleman called Steve Okeo, he tells me, I need you to come and help me see this business through the merged entity for a 4-month period as a consultant. And so I'm doing the Chukwa Selfie and I'm doing the Telkom job.
And Telkom was a consultant.
Yeah, I started off Kenya as a consultant.
Wow. And what year was this around?
We're talking 2019.
So not long ago, really.
About
Just
3 years.
before COVID. Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. 3.5 years ago.
And then you're here doing
So I'm doing Chukwa Selfie and I'm doing this.
concurrently.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm doing Coca.
As a consultant, in
As a
both
consultant.
instances.
Yeah, I make it very clear that I want a mutually exclusive contract. I don't want. I
I'm
don't.
sure the paydays weren't bad.
I was hand over fist. I was making sterling pounds and Kenyan shillings, traveling the world. I mean, every 2 months I was in some part of the world in conference talking about Chukwa Selfie, how we're getting young men to test and how we're doing it differently. And I ran into a lot of trouble. Eh?
How so?
Oh, you've never met something called NASCOP. Have you ever heard something called NASCOP? National AIDS something.
Yes, NASCO.
They ate me alive.
Because the way this thing was being
Yes,
packaged.
they're telling that we're just encouraging young people to be sexually promiscuous. And I was trying to tell them, you guys have done this thing of ABCD. Abstain, be faithful, use a condom or die. And it never worked with young males. Now I'm bringing something radical.
You're dealing with the reality.
Yeah, I'm bringing in something radical that young males are latching onto and are loving and liking. But am I trying to understand them the way doing it in the traditional context will not get through to these young males.
We need to
radicalize,
switch,
flip the switch. Yes, we are rebels, but with a clue and a cause.
Yeah.
Were they able to see past that? No, they're very traditional in their approach.
Mm.
And so what ended up happening is my principals, they used to go out of the UK. Started saying, no, you guys, there's this guy called Mr. Achola. He's a bit too radical.
Wow.
And so my consultancy ends, and I move on, and I start doing consultancy now purely at Telkom.
More or less all the time with Telkom.
And what ends up happening is eventually Harry leaves his status on the throne, and funding kind of dries up because he was really the man behind Mainstar.
He was drawing it.
Yeah, but at that time, I was really working with many other partners, USAID, PEPFAR, J&J. But I was really working for that time Elton John's AIDS Foundation.
Okay.
And they were the ones who were bringing in this radical approach and a different filter.
Yeah.
The lesson here for me is the principles need to be clear. Are you ready for the cause? Because it's going to get hot.
Especially when it's contrarian to how things have been done.
And let's be honest, so such is innovation. you're always going to have to rock the steady quo. And it reminds me of something so fundamental in my later years that I've come to appreciate. Be very wary of what the expert of you is. The experts are experts in what is defined and known. When you want to innovate, you're going beyond what they know. So they will always challenge it and beat you hard because it's unknown to them and uncomfortable and sticky. Because they're not experts in the unknown. And I think this is why we struggle with NASCOP. So today, if you ask me, has the HIV prevalent in young males changed? No. What have they done that's different? So it's classical, you know? It's a classical thing of doing the same thing and expecting different results.
As Einstein said.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Eric, I think we're kind of strapped for time here, and I hope, this might end up having to be a two-part interview. Because, my God, you've given me an incredible journey to where we are today.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit, because I imagine right now you're kind of leaving Menstar, you're now, I guess, moving into a full-time role at Telkom, right? In 2019.
Yes.
Tell me how that happens, what goes on there.
So, COVID erupts.
We're now in the COVID years.
Yeah, just the brink of it.
And now you're heading up marketing.
Yeah, I'm heading up, but I'm still a consultant.
Still a consultant?
I tell these guys I don't like these consulting things because when businesses tie up, the first thing goes are consultants.
Yes.
Yeah, so
they're seen as peripheral.
Yeah, so I go up and put up my hand and tell the guys,
you got to hook it up full time.
Make it permanent.
Yes.
I need to be a hook, line, and sinker. And so I get in 2020 as a full-time employee. Mm-hmm. And I've been here since then. Is it an easy journey? No. Is it an interesting journey? Yeah.
How does it feel coming into Telkom from Safaricom, of course, with a significant gap? What are the things that you start to see, or rather, we find interesting about the nuances between the two? And I'm hoping that in this sense, of course, you're still at Telkom, but what do you see when you come in? What is the appeal, given the Safaricom background?
I tell you what, the most interesting thing is the love for the brand at a consumer level. It's shockingly refreshing.
There's a loyalty.
Yeah, because you see sometimes when you're in a big brand, you're so dominant. You really don't listen to small sound bites. You kind of know your customer. As I told you, they orchestrate. I'm not saying they're not successful by default. They orchestrate, but there's an arrogance you carry. Yeah?
Because you're number one, you're the top dog, right?
Yeah, and you also sometimes take it for a little bit for granted. But
actually, everything is black and white at that level. Huh?
Easy.
There's no gray.
Yeah, there's no gray. There's no gray, and you have money to solve your problems.
So you come here, what happens?
I have no money. I have half the resources, a much smaller, leaner team, okay? And a quarter of the size of their network. But the thing that keeps me hopeful is the customer. I can tell you what, today my market share is about 8%. But there's something we call share of gross ads. How many customers are you able to acquire every single month?
Yeah.
So what we call SOGA, share of gross ads, is about 18 to 20%.
Wow.
Yeah. Do I lose these customers in the process of trying to keep them?
I
use them because of, I've got other challenges I need to fix, which are more long-term, that we're trying to fix. I think Mugo talked about it earlier today about how we're investing in the network. And it will take time, eh?
Yeah.
But the fact that you've got such a high SOGA relative to your real market share shows you there's a customer who wants you. There are a few things that we need to fix, and when we get them right, the magic will happen.
It's almost like sitting there on the fence, they're ready. They just want a few fundamentals to work.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. Because the customer tells you, if you fix this, and let me tell you, one day look at my social feeds. Look at how they rant. About, but your network. Your bundles are great, but your network. Okay? I'm not running away from it.
I love the way you're bringing honest to this, yes.
But I tell you what that tells you. A customer who rants, a customer cares. The day they stop ranting,
get worried.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was Bill Gates who said the most irate customers are your best source of learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And these guys rant. And they tell you, I love this, I love what you guys are doing here. But just fix this for me.
Because honestly speaking, I've looked at your bundles and all, and they're very fair. Ridiculously fair.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to actually the original reason why we're here today.
Yeah.
Which I reached out to you last week. I was so excited when I saw it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Changa Bundle, right?
Yeah. So, Changa Bundle, simply put, it comes from the very word Changa. People, in this Kenya, we've got this shared culture. People put things together, we put our resources, it comes to even think about it, Harambe spirit, we put money together for the common good. So this is the essence of that. It comes from the very pure essence of who we are as Kenyans. We come together, we unite, and we rally behind a cause and get on. So this is where it comes from. So here we put in our resources. It's a 1,500 shilling product. You get 100 gigabytes.
That's the big thing. That's a big punchline. 100
Absolutely.
gigabytes. Unbelievable.
200 on-net minutes and 50 shillings on-net across.
There's nothing like this in Kenya right now. There's nothing like this.
Absolutely not. But nothing stops anyone from doing it. The thing is, do you understand the pulse of the market? You see, marketing is not about being first to market. Sometimes it's about understanding where's the customer
The
pain
insight,
point.
huh?
Yeah, what's the pain point today? Because let me be honest with you, ask you, Moses. You are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
You have many people in your ecosystem who depend on you. How many times do you get a phone call saying, boss, you need to me airtime?
My friend, data is the oxygen, especially working from home.
Yeah.
Data is everything.
Yeah. So this eliminates that. Say, now this is your number, I'll put you into the,
Put you
tap into the resource. Tap into the resource. No one can call you, I can't do because I don't have. It's there.
No, and 100 GB will comfortably last the whole month.
100 GB.
Streaming and everything.
Yes.
So in any case, it's almost like an unlimited.
It's almost unlimited.
In a sense.
Yeah, but I'll tell you a different argument for another day, but we can talk about it maybe, as you said, maybe there'll be a sequel or
No, this is part one. This is part one because I know we're out of time. But so coming to market with this proposition and why I really reached out to you after a long time, said, Eric, we got to talk about this. We got to have a conversation. Maybe it's very early, but I mean, what sort of are the numbers already incredible? Are you seeing some incredible uptake within the last week already?
So the numbers are coming through, and they're coming through hard and fast. And the bigger thing right now that we're having to answer is it true?
Just this doubt, this belief,
100 gigs, 1,500. How does it work? Because now I can tell you most of my competitor bundles. For 1,000 shillings, 4 gigabytes. Most I can see 30 gigs.
So this is
This is unimaginable.
So why limit it to a group versus individual? I mean, could I purchase it also at that level? Eric, I think we're time barred. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation. There will be a part 2.
Thank you very much.
Sana.
Appreciate it, Moses.